looking for roots to strengthen me, places of power, places of energy, places already inside me.
That piece of music you heard there was recorded by Angela, and it's called Roots. So thank you, Angela, for sharing that with us this morning. The year's fruitfulness is at an end. Life has ebbed down into the earth. In all nature, darkness gathers. Now, with the plants and animals, the wise turn inwards to the sleeping seeds, for death is a beginning. We share this time with the dead and the unborn. Blessed be. Words of Hedwig's author, Ray Beth. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Welcome to Chorlton Unitarian Church. My name's Laura, and I'm the layperson in charge here. This is a Unitarian church, and we are people looking for truth, meaning, love, and deep connection. In today's service, we will be honouring those who have gone before us and touched our lives, celebrating our current community and looking forward to the future. Let's hold a few minutes silence to prepare ourselves for things of the Spirit. Please. This is a house of reflection and contemplation, of joy and sorrow, of friendship and sharing. We light this chalice in remembrance of what we have been and in the hope of what we may become. In bearing witness to their lives and the role they play in ours, we pay homage to and strengthen the interdependent web of existence that connects us all. May this light shine in the inner realms as it does in the world. Those who come to sit beside its flame are welcome. Amen. Let it be. Please stay seated as we sing our first song, number 148 in the Purple Book, Spirit of Life. Con will lead us in prayer.
Let us share a time of reflection or prayer with the words of the Reverend Vernon Marshall. Prayer for late autumn. Builder of seasons, mother of nature, the days shorten, the skies darken, and we feel the ache of the gloom of autumn. The months before us seem like a desert in which we cannot discern an oasis. We yearn for that renewal which comes with the spring, with the strength of the sun, the growth of the buds. But all around us is a beauty we often fail to see. Let not our souls be filled with gloom when you have provided seasonal gifts. The trees, though lifeless, are not leafless. The plants, though not vernal, are yet vital. There is an energy and a power bubbling within the fabric of our earth. Let our souls tap that force. Let us become attuned to the vigour that is life. Let us see your benevolent face in the greying aspect of autumn. Embrace us with your warmth, calm us with your peace, enthuse us with your love of our world, and breathe into us the breath of God by which we live. Amen.
Thank you, Tom. The story today is by Erica Barron, called A Story of Light and Darkness. Once upon a time there lived people who loved the light. As soon as the sun rose every morning, they were up to welcome it, singing songs of celebration for the light. And when the sun went down each evening, they sang other songs, sad songs, songs of missing the light of the sun. They loved the light so very much. They did not love the darkness. Once darkness fell every night, they would hurry to bed, since they could only bear the darkness when they were asleep. Even then, total darkness was frightening to them, and they always kept a fire burning in every room. The people's dearest wish was that the sun would not set in the evening, that darkness would never fall. But every day the sun set, and they sang their sad songs, and they endured the fearful, sad, strange darkness, until they could greet the sun again the next day. Now in this land were born two remarkable children. They were twins. One was a girl, and she seemed to shine from within. Whenever she entered a room, everything seemed to get a little brighter, and the people loved her very much. The other was a boy, and he seemed to bring darkness with him. Whenever he entered a room, everything seemed a little dimmer, and the people did not like him. They feared him because he reminded them of the great darkness of the night. But although the people loved the girl and did not love the boy, the twins loved each other very much. And because the girl loved her brother so very much, the people mostly let him be, even though they were afraid of him. Now as they grew, it became clear that these children were in fact magical children. The girl had the power to bring back life when it was harmed or lost. When she was a very small child, she could heal but small cuts and bruises. When she grew a little older, she could heal broken bones and other larger hurts. And by the time she was a teenager, she could make crops grow faster and larger and fuller. She could bring plants and animals that had died back to life. The people suspected she could even bring people back to life, but they were a little afraid to ask, and she did not offer. The boy, on the other hand, had the power to calm and quiet anything. When he was a very small child, he could help his family go to sleep more quickly, thus saving them from the fear of the darkness. When he was a little older, he could calm animals when they were frightened and make them still. Sometimes he would go first to an animal or a person who was hurt and help them be calm enough for his sister's healing magic to work. And by the time he was a teenager, he could calm storms and winds and rains. He could bring anything to stillness. The people's love for the light and fear of the darkness only grew with time, perhaps more strongly with the twins always before them to remind them. And so one day they decided to ask the girl for a favour. They asked her to see if her magic could hold the sun in the sky and stop the night from coming. The girl was reluctant, but after many months of being asked, she finally decided to try, just to get people to leave her alone. One day, just as the sun was at its highest point, she went out onto the top of the highest hill in the land, and she threw her arms up into the sky and asked the sun to stop, to stay right there at the top of the sky forever. She wasn't immediately sure that anything had happened. The sun usually moves so slowly. But before very long, it became clear that something had happened. The sun had stopped in the sky. The people were overjoyed. There was a big celebration. They sang all of their songs celebrating the sun. They loved the girl even more, at least at first. For the first week or so, everyone was happy and content. But soon they began to get tired. Although they had always slept with a fire to ward off the darkness, sleeping in the full light of the sun was another thing altogether. They tossed and turned and woke up constantly. Some of them remembered that the boy could help with sleep and asked for his aid, but his power of bringing sleep seemed to have disappeared along with the darkness. After about a month, the exhausted, frustrated people began to see that this constant sunlight was a problem. Though they still loved the light, they began to wish that the sun would once again move in the sky. Each person at first thought that they were the only one who thought like this. And given the people's love of the light and fear of the darkness, everyone was afraid at first to say anything about this growing longing for nighttime. But slowly, softly, as they began to confide in each other, they discovered that everyone felt this way, and they finally decided that something must be done. They went back to the girl and asked her to get the sun to move again. It was her magic that had stopped it, and they figured her magic could make it move again. So she went back up onto the top of the highest hill, threw her arms up into the sky, and asked the sun to move. Nothing happened. She tried again, and a third time, but the sun stayed still. Sadly, she turned to the people and told them there was nothing she could do. There was a long moment of growing panic before the boy stepped forward. "Let me try," he said softly. Everyone thought about it for a moment and decided this was a good idea. So he took his sister's place at the top of the highest hill, threw his arms up into the sky, and asked the sun to move. The sun began moving at once, rushing towards the western horizon. Within 10 minutes, it had set, and within 15, it was full dark night. The people were caught off guard. They had all come out to the hill to see if the girl's magic would work. They had no fires lit. They hadn't needed them in weeks. They had nothing with them to light their way. They had never been outside at night before, and they were terrified. At first, they tried rushing home to get away from the darkness, but they soon discovered that rushing when you can't see where you're going is a bad idea. They slowed down, but still peered at the ground, trying to get home as soon as they could. But then one of them looked up. "Oh!" she exclaimed. "Look!" Everyone looked up, and they all saw the stars for the first time. They had never been outside at night before, and they had no idea of the incredible beauty of a sky full of stars. They all stopped hurrying towards their homes and stood and stared in wonder. And they realised how very tired they were, and so slowly now, and with more reverence, they started home again. They all slept for a very long time. The people rested and were glad, and appreciated the darkness for the first time in their lives. Eventually the sun rose again. As it did, the people got out of their beds and sang their songs to celebrate the coming of the light. But at the end of the day, as the sun began to sink towards the horizon, they did not feel like singing their sad songs. Instead, one of the musicians began singing a new song, a slow, quiet song of thanksgiving for the night. And soon the others joined in. It became their new sunset song. And the boy and the girl grew up to be a man and a woman, and both of them were now very much beloved by the people. Looking at them, still the best of friends as well as siblings, the people remembered that lightness and darkness are best in balance. Now Tom will read us a poem.
The Bridge Builder by Will Allen Dromgoole. An old man going on a lone highway came at the evening cold and grey to a chasm vast and deep and wide, through which was flowing a sullen tide. The old man crossed in the twilight dim. The sullen stream had no fear for him, but he turned when safe on the other side and built a bridge to span the tide. "Old man," said a fellow pilgrim near, "you are wasting your strength with building here. Your journey will end with the closing day. You never again will pass this way. You've crossed the chasm deep and wide. Why build this bridge at evening tide?" The builder lifted his old grey head. "Good friend, in the path I have come," he said, "there followed after me today 2 youths whose feet must pass this way. This chasm that has been as naught to me, to those fair-haired youths may a pitfall be. They too must cross in the twilight dim. Good friend, I'm building this bridge for her and him."
Now Julie's going to lead us in a reflection and meditation, after which there'll be a short silence.
The Last Leaf by David M. Horst. Once, many grey autumns ago, I came upon a tree. The tree, a poplar, had dropped all of its leaves but for one. Just one. Exactly one leaf remained near the topmost part of the tree, fluttering in the breeze like a little reddish-brown flag. All of the other leaves lay about the ground or had blown away. I stopped and looked and marvelled at the sight. I wondered what the odds might be that I was the one person who happened to arrive at that one tree at that one moment when but one leaf remained. What were the odds? I felt an instant kinship with the one leaf. I admired its stubbornness. I spoke quietly to it. Hang on. Never give up. Don't let go. I gazed at the last leaf for a time, though I did not stay to witness its falling. I didn't want to witness its falling. The leaf was not ready to let go and drop silently to the ground, and neither was I, though I knew we both would, in time, let go. I praised the last leaf on that autumn day many years ago when I was still young. I walked on, and slowly, imperceptibly, a sense of calm came over me, a sense of acceptance, a sense of peace. The exuberance of summer is gone. Grand plans and high hopes give way to chilly reality. We loved as best we could. We've reaped as much as we could. We've travelled life's journey as far as we could. We count our blessings and our losses. All leaves must fall. The circle of the year comes round. Our hemisphere tilts away from the sun. Green turns to gold. Life returns to the soil. Animals retreat. The nights grow long. The natural world lies fallow. The season of letting go comes as it always comes. Winter begins.
We'll now sing our second song, Give Thanks for Life, number 44 in the Purple Book. Proverb says, if we stand tall, it is because we stand on the backs of those who came before us. When I was preparing this service, I asked myself, who were my ancestors? And I realised that I knew little about my family beyond my grandparents. So I asked my parents to tell me about their grandparents. So this is a brief history of my family. I'm the daughter of Susan Meads and Roger Dobson, Warwickshire farmers. My grandparents on my mother's side were Joan Elsie Moore and Cecil Meads, an engineer from Nottingham. Joan's parents were Elsie Maud Healy and Tom Fields Moore, a train driver from Rugby. They met in a cinema queue. In World War I, Tom was gassed and reported missing, presumed dead. Several months later, his mother opened the door and thought there was a stranger standing there, but it was actually her son. She didn't recognise him because he'd grown a beard. When Tom died, Elsie's son Ken bought her a cat for company named Charlie. She fed him a bowl of cornflakes every morning. And every morning he would lap up the milk and leave the cornflakes. And she would say, "Oh, Charlie loves his cornflakes." Cecil's parents were Alfred, a newsagent from Nottingham, and Ethel, who had been in service until her marriage. And my grandparents on my father's side were Gladys Simpson and Reginald Ernest Dobson, Shropshire farmers. Gladys' parents were Nellie Carew and Frank Simpson, who owned a farm in the hamlet of Ridgewoodine in Shropshire. When Frank died in the influenza epidemic of 1918, Nellie ran the farm and brought up her 5 children, all on her own. Reginald's parents were Dorothy and Ernest, who owned a farm at nearby Hodnet. Dorothy had 6 children and died of pneumonia when Reginald, the eldest, was 9. Bit of family scandal now. Ernest began a relationship with a married woman named Ethel, who became stepmother to the children and lived to be 103. In the Great Depression, land could be bought cheaply in the 1930s, and Ernest bought his son Reginald a farm near Rugby, Warwickshire in 1936, which is where my parents still live now. These are my ancestors, and their stories are part of who I am. My family connections to the land and nature are an important part of my spirituality, as are the spiritual traditions of those who have lived in these islands through the centuries. Celts, Saxons, Vikings. All cultures honour their ancestors in some way. We tell stories, build monuments to our dead, and keep their heirlooms. In some cultures, ancestors may be seen as guides or spirits. In the Shinto religion of Japan, the ancient ancestors of clans are thought to have been kami, or spirits of place. In West African traditional religion, ancestors remain alongside the living as long as they have descendants to honour them. They can help, harm, or just cause mischief to a descendant, and to ensure the ancestor's kindness, they must be honoured with prayers and offerings. Whether or not we believe in the continuing conscious existence of our ancestors' spirits, they live on through their descendants, and our lives are not only influenced by family ancestors, but also by spiritual ancestors, people whose life stories have impacted upon our own and helped us to make us the people we are. The Unitarian Universalist minister Alice Blair Wesley once said that joining a church is adopting a new set of ancestors. When we became Unitarians, we adopted a set of ancestors. People like Francis David, founder of the Unitarian Church of Transylvania, and Michael Servetus of Spain, persecuted for denying the Trinity, became influences in our lives, along with many others whose names and deeds we may not know or remember. Honouring ancestors connects us not only with our family and cultural histories, but also with the past and the future. It reminds us that we too will one day be ancestors, that our presence will be felt beyond our lifetime, because our choices today are shaping the lives of those who will follow us and will affect all the generations to come. Not everything we inherit from our ancestors is positive. Conflict, oppression, inequality, all these are the legacy of those who have come before us. But we don't have to pass these things on to the next generation. And we are all playing our part in building a better future by acting with compassion and respect for each other and for the earth in the present. finish with a poem by Norbert Čapek, who composed this in Dresden prison in 1941. Čapek was a Czech Unitarian minister who created the Flower Communion. He spoke out against the Nazis and was executed by them after being sent to Dachau in 1942. It is worthwhile to live and fight courageously for sacred ideals. O blow ye evil winds into my body's fire, my soul you'll never unravel. Even though disappointed 1,000 times, or fallen in the fight and everything was worthless seem, I have lived amidst eternity. Be grateful, my soul, my life was worth living. He who has pressed from all sides, but remained victorious in spirit, is welcomed into the choir of heroes. He who overcame the fetters, giving wings to his mind, is entering into the golden age of the victorious. We'll now sing our next song. It's number 43 in the Green Book, Universal Spirit. And this song was composed by Norbert Čapek. Now we're going to remember just a few of our Unitarian ancestors. Mary will tell us about Elizabeth Gaskell.
Widely read Victorian novelist Elizabeth Gaskell wrote several notable works, including Mary Barton, Cranford, North and South, and Wives and Daughters. Her novels offer a detailed portrait of the lives of people all across society, including the very poor. In particular, they emphasise the role of women, with complex narratives and dynamic female characters. Her first novel, Mary Barton, was published in 1848 and was set in Manchester in the Industrial Revolution, and this drew attention to the appalling poverty and living conditions here. Elizabeth was married to William Gaskell, minister of Cross Street Unitarian Chapel.
Now Kath will come and tell us about John Pounds.
John Pound is an eminent Unitarian in the field of education in England. He was the founder of the Ragged Schools, a poor cobbler who lived in a room above his shoe repair shop. A man who did not bother about payment if people could not afford it. A favourite meeting place for children if they were hungry. He would share a meal. If they were ill, he would look after them. For 25 years he taught as he worked at his shoes. He provided shelter, education, food, all out of his own money. A lover of flowers too and trees, and once a week he took poor children out near Portsmouth.
Now Mike will come and tell us about Joseph Priestley.
Imagine the scene. A mild-mannered scientist looks on in horror as a mob of enraged villagers destroy his house and his laboratory. No, this isn't the latest Hollywood blockbuster about Frankenstein. It's set in 1791. The scientist is Joseph Priestley, a famous Unitarian minister, and the maddened mob of villagers were all Anglicans. Plus ça change. Joseph Priestley was born in 1733 to a conventional dissenting Christian family. He trained for the ministry, but his reading led him to question the Trinitarian dogmas, and he moved towards the Unitarian side. He became a friend of the American diplomat and scientist Benjamin Franklin, and also of the English Unitarian minister Theophilus Lindsay, who founded one of the first, if not the first, Unitarian chapels in this country, in Essex Street in London, the site of what we now call Essex Hall, the headquarters of the General Assembly. Priestley was a gentle, kind, generous and Christian man. As he stood in the ruins of his house and laboratory, he spoke a sermon of love, compassion and forgiveness. He stayed in this country for a few years and then went to America. Unitarians were detested by the Anglican Orthodoxy for being heretics and by the Hanoverian state authorities for sponsoring individual liberty and the French and American revolutions. Priestley was interested in chemistry. He was an innovative inquirer. He researched the gases that we now know as oxygen and carbon dioxide. He invented carbonated water, although he didn't pursue it commercially. He left that to a colleague of his in Europe, a man with the name, you know who. Herr Schwepp ran with this, patented it, and made a fortune. Priestley died in 1804, but his memory still lives on.
Thank you, Mike. I invite you now to come forward as you wish, to light a candle, either in silence or with a few words, in remembrance of your own loved ones who are no longer with us. We'll sing our next song, number 11 in the Purple Book, Blessed Spirit of My Life. Donahue wrote this blessing for his mother. On the day when the weight deadens on your shoulders and you stumble, may the clay dance to balance you. And when your eyes freeze behind the grey window and the ghost of loss gets into you, may a flock of colours, indigo, red, green, and azure blue, come to awaken you in a measure of delight. When the canvas frays in the currach of thought and a stain of ocean blackens beneath you, may there come across the waters a path of yellow moonlight to bring you safely home. May the nourishment of the earth be yours. May the clarity of light be yours. May the protection of the ancestors be yours. And so may a slow wind work these words of love around you, an invisible cloak to mind your life. Amen. And we'll sing our final song, number 102 in the Purple Book, May the Road Rise With You. And Amanda's going to play it through once, and then we'll sing it twice.
Amen.